Broadcasting from the Teddy Belanger studio in Rome, New York. Welcome into episode 85 of the Avetts and Beyond. My name's Todd Emanuele. Ryan Boyle's along with me again this week. And we have a very special guest back again. I say again, this is her first time as a guest. She hosted this show before when I was sick a while back. Michelle Little, and who was that? Oh, Tim Mossberger.
Tim, yep.
Hosted the show. So Jen Spiegel is here.
Hey.
Spiegs, welcome in as a guest this time.
Hi, everybody.
Thanks for coming on. And I know it was a little challenging getting on here on the new platform, but we're here, we're good, and we're ready to go. So how have you been?
I've been great. Just trying to recover. Obviously, it was
into that whole thing.
Avetts Moon, which took a lot out of me. So I'm still trying to get my sleep schedule back on like an adult. And then about a week before that, I was in Key West for a week.
Oh my gosh!
Also need a little break for my liver.
Right now?
Yeah, maybe tomorrow.
Maybe tomorrow. That's good. So, man, you've been traveling a lot, going to a lot of shows. We talked about it last week, Ryan and I, a little bit, that you guys went down to Avetts Moon and it was your 100th show. Tell me about that whole experience. I know we got some of it last week, but tell me your version of the story of the whole Avetts Moon thing.
This was probably about 6 months in the planning for me. The Avetts had released a huge schedule, which was awesome. I love that. I love when they release most everything together. That way I can sort of plan my whole year. Because there have been times in the past where I'm going to a certain show, but had I known that this other show was happening, I probably would have chosen that, for whatever reason, because obviously I go to a lot of shows. And I plan my vacations around it. So I've known for about 6 months that this was going to be my 100th show. And about 2 months before, I had sort of put in like my requests in hopes that they would play, one of them at least. The first song that I sent in, though, to my contact got shot down immediately. That person was like, nope, not going to happen.
What song was that?
It's When You Learn, which is one of the things I sent to you, Todd, because I'm like, it's such a beautiful song. They have never played it live.
That is one of my Chase songs. That's like, they need to play that. Scott needs to play that song.
It's so beautiful. And Scott in falsetto is, and by no means is this derogatory. It's a little on the rough side, but I like that. Like, I like a gritty voice. So to me, it's very beautiful, but it's a very raw song. And I think that it's nice because I can totally see that as a song from like a child to a parent that was a great support for them. I can also see that as like from a couple, like someone that's in, a marriage or, a long-term relationship, and they've been lifted up by a person and they come home and they're just sort of like exhausted. But that person just still lifts them up and loves them anyway. So I see it both ways with that song. It's such a beautiful song. I would love to hear it live. But I was told no. So I gave some alternatives.
Scott's probably forgotten how to play it.
And I completely respect that. I haven't forgotten it, Scott. So get with it, sir. But it would be awesome to hear that live.
That song and It's Raining Today are two of my top ones that I would love for them or him to substitute in as one of his solo songs during the set. I think a lot of people would like that.
Just beautiful, and like I said, very raw sounding songs. And I don't know if they prefer a polished, they won't return my calls. So I don't know if they prefer plus that restraining order, whatever.
You're on the watch list, right? I think
maybe
that's a rarefied club to be in.
Wow.
And so that was, like I said, that was my number one. And I even thought about pushing it a little and like creating a banner to hold up that says, "When You Learn, it's my 100th show," in hopes that would, but I was like, you know what, I'm going to respect that. I was told not likely.
You could have made t-shirts. You could have gone the whole Vic Maida route, but you didn't do that.
I do think they have to practice some of these now. Like I really do. Like the catalog is so big, and some of these they are kind of perfectionists, so they don't want to just half-ass it either. So I do think it takes some effort.
At the same time, Scott is notorious for not practicing as much as Seth. So
I guess I'm really just talking about Seth, so maybe Seth's good. I don't know.
I mean, Seth ain't involved, so he can just chill on the side while Scott pushes through.
Yeah. Pushes through. That's a good way to describe it, probably.
And like, speaking of one of my favorite moments ever, not that y'all asked this question, but when, God bless Mike, nothing against Mike, when Mike got COVID in Mexico and they had to improvise, as a person that has seen them a ton of times. And of course I respect the polished show. I loved that it was just sort of off the cuff, and it's like they're just making it work because they had to. So I of course love that the show went on, and of course Mike was fine, and that's wonderful. But one of my favorite like top 5 favorite show for me was that particular show, just because it was just so different and maybe not quite polished. But I certainly understand wanting to put on the best performance you can, because you never know who's new in the show, who it's their first time, and that sort of thing.
Which is why I think you get repetitive playlist or set lists a lot, because they are considering that a lot of the people there may not have seen them before, and they want to play some of their better known songs.
Right.
There were so many new people I saw that at Avett Moon itself that were either like their first or second show, and that, to me, I don't know about you, Speaks, but now that we're at 100, I wish I could do it all over again, because now I'm like, I'm trying to be reflective, but I don't even remember some of them. And now I feel like if I could do that first show over again from all those years ago, it would be awesome. What do you think?
I think that, I mean, absolutely. I still remember my first show like it was yesterday. I honestly do. And I think I talked about this maybe when I was on with Tim, but I went, it was September 10th, 2010. I did not know who they were. Didn't even know who they were. And one of my homies, her husband was sick. So she was like, hey, do you want this free ticket? Like, the show's in 2 hours. And Brandy Carlisle was opening, and I love Brandy. So I was like, yeah, I'll go. And so I go. And it's at, I know, 2010.
You were totally like, we might not stay for the opening, for the act. For the
exactly. And so we go, and Brandy's awesome. And it was at Chastain Park, which I feel like holds maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people. And it was sold out. And I was like, who is this band? I've never even heard of them. They sold out Chastain Amphitheater. Like, I was shocked. And I remember I worked at an animal hospital at the time. So I was sitting next to, it just happened to be a client from the animal hospital. And he was like, oh, you're in for a treat. And he's like, my daughter loves Paranoia in B flat major. And I was like, okay, like, let me know when it comes on. And I remember when it came on, and I was like, whoa, like, what am I seeing? Yeah. And then toward the end, when they played Talk on Indolence, that's why I will always rate Talk on Indolence as my favorite song, because that was the first song that I saw that I was like, I don't even know what I'm watching right now. Yeah. And Joe, I didn't even know people rocked out on a cello. I didn't even know that was possible.
They don't normally.
No, and
but those were also like the jumping, just vibrating.
Well, I was just going to ask
crazy
you,
days. Yeah.
And they were screaming probably too, because they don't do that anymore.
Yes. And funny, at the time, I was actually listening to heavy metal, and I still love my heavy metal from like the mid 90s to like 2010, 2012. I had been to, like, my 30th birthday, I went to Five Finger Death Punch. That was my 30th birthday concert. I've seen Korn, I've seen Slipknot 4 or 5 times.
All Avett adjacent, right?
Exactly. And so watching this sort of folky Americana band with a banjo, which I never thought I'd listen to a band with a banjo.
I was funny.
The yelling. I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" Yeah. And so I love, to this day, I love a yelly Seth. But you
answered my question. I was going to ask you, because I know you were into heavy metal and all this metal stuff. How did you end up listening to the Avett Brothers? But you just perfectly explained it. You by accident discovered them.
And the funny part was, and I had been a big concert goer. I love going to concerts, and I always have. 1 month later, so Live Volume 3 had come out about 2 or 3 weeks after I saw them. This was back in the day of CDs for the most part. Bought the CD, did not remove it from my car for probably a good year and a half. That is all I listened to for a year and a half. If you got in my car, that's what you were hearing. Nice. And so I loved that. So I loved them live. And then it was about a month and a half later, toward the end of October, they played at the South Carolina State Fair in Columbia, South Carolina, and which is where I went to school there. So go Cox. So I went to that. So within immediately, this band I had never heard of, I started traveling to go see them. And speaking
so go through 1 through 100 right now. Tell us about every show.
I could. I actually, Ryan, we're gonna have to do this challenge next time we're at the same show. We're gonna have to sit down and write down every show that we remember and see who can actually. I feel like I can do it.
Like, see who can say them. I'll take you on that challenge. I probably will lose, but I don't back down from a challenge.
Yeah,
nice.
I have a terrible memory. I can't even remember the names of some of my good friends, but I promise you,
mine is getting worse and worse and worse. I'm like, I get on this show and I'm like, you're Todd, right?
Who, me? Okay. Yeah. Is that who I am? I have a terrible memory too. It's awful. It's always been awful.
You know what?
I always say I can remember baseball stats.
Let me ask y'all, since like you go to shows, whether they're Avetts or not. My thing is, I can't connect names to faces. Like, I know all the faces and I know all the names, but I can't match them when I see you.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's like an affliction I have.
That's normal. I'm this. So normal. Again, like, I worked at an animal hospital, so I've done that for 25 years. Your pet, like, if I've met your pet, I will be like, hey, what's up, Rocky's dad? Because I don't know your name.
Right.
100%. I remember Rocky. I will tell you all you want to know about Rocky. I won't remember you. You're just Rocky's dad. So
you got your priorities straight.
Yeah. Dogs are superior. Dogs and cats are superior to humans. So
can't disagree with that. Yeah. My thing is baseball stats and baseball weird facts. I can just recall anything and it drives my wife crazy. She's like, you can't remember, to make dinner or whatever, but you can remember stats from 100 years ago. I'm like, it's just the way my brain works. Sorry.
Yeah. I can't explain it. My head is so full of song lyrics. I mean, have any of y'all ever actually sat and thought about the amount of song lyrics piled into there? There's not room for anything else. Like, I'm just keeping it real.
I picture like, you remember the old card catalogs at the library?
Mm-hmm.
When I hear a song that I haven't heard in years, but I can still remember all the words, I picture like a card catalog opening and going back to whatever letter and being like, oh, there's that song. Yep. And I just remember it. It's so weird.
Immediately.
I think that is why I think the silent disco that they did at the beach, like, I think that's why it's so cool, is because you're probably remembering a song from 20 years ago, but you can sing every word. It's the same thing. It's like a muscle memory.
Yeah,
it's total muscle memory. Crazy.
I love it. It's a gift.
Yep.
All right. So you never finished talking about the songs you picked for what you wanted them for request for your 100th show.
Yeah, my apologies. I tangent a lot.
We went off on a tangent there. We talked about When You Learn as being one of your picks, but
that was number one. Then I chose 4 or 5 other ones as alternatives to get to 100% on the database. Pretty Girl from Feltry, Pretty Girl from Locust was on there. I Never Knew You. These are all ones that would have gotten me to 100. But then I said, if none of those are really working for them, one that I would love to hear, because it had been 10 years, and they played it a ton when I first started going in 2010, was Pretty Girl from Cedar Lane. I love that song. I haven't heard it since 2014. And I remembered Joe did like a Instagram Q&A or whatever the kids are using. And they said someone asked what his favorite song to play live was. And he actually said Pretty Girl from Cedar Lane. So I thought that was a shoo-in. So I'm glad they played Locust and I got to 100%. But like, in hindsight, I'm like, really would have loved Cedar Lane though, because it's so good.
Nice. Shameless plug for the database there. If you're watching on YouTube.
Yes. Yeah, I do love my database. I don't know that I would have realized that I was at 100 or that I would have strived to get to it had I not had that like in my face.
How would you, you wouldn't even have thought to keep track of every single song you've heard or what albums you've heard completely. There's no way.
Like all the time. Well, I find that all the time, even when you're just doing the couch tour, you're like not at a show, you're following along. Like my wife and I all the time will swear up and down that we've heard a song live and we haven't. Or, like it's wild.
It's amazing that you guys have been to 100 shows each and you haven't heard every single song, but that they just have too many songs.
Well, a few albums, like Spiegel said, we have a few albums that are complete, but there's surprisingly a few that are,
I think it was actually offering. I would have sworn, like, I would have bet my entire bank account and my house and my animal and my husband that I had heard it live.
Yeah.
But I hadn't per the database. And it was because of Live Volume 2. It's on there as one of the live songs.
Oh, I see.
So I was like, yeah, I've heard it live. Like,
so you totally heard it live, just not in front of you.
Screaming. Yeah, that's in it. That was when they had the real rowdy crowd. But then I did actually get it in Atlanta, I think 2 years ago, maybe. And I was like, okay, I actually can check that off the list.
Nice.
So.
Now you can actually check it off, right?
Yeah.
Now I feel so inferior to you guys sitting here with 100 shows each, and I've only been to 3. I wonder if there's any songs that I got at my 3 shows that you guys haven't gotten.
That's a great question.
That would be something to check.
I think that it comes up a lot in the chats where people will feel, and I'm not saying you feel this way, but people will be like, oh, I've only been to X amount. And I'm like, you know what, though? The thing is, and I'll fully admit this as a person that's been to 100 shows, which I never thought I would be a person that has seen a band 100 times, right. Is that it's probably more meaningful when you've seen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10. And like I said, I would have to sit down and really think about it. I could do it, but really think about what I've been to. But can I tell you how I felt at every single one? And, if the joy that I felt at the time or not. And then there comes I'll admit, a small bit of entitlement when you've been to a lot of shows where you're like, why are they playing this again? As if they're playing the show just for you. Or like, oh, I traveled all this way and it's the same set list. And so that's why I'm like, to me, when someone's like, oh, this is my first show, I'm always like, that is the best show. Like, I'm always jealous. Like, you might be like, oh, you've been to 100, I'm jealous. It's like, no. When you go into your first one right now, I'm like, I'm so jealous. I can't be any more jealous of that. And I can't get back to that.
I got Matrimony at my first show.
Ooh.
There you go.
There you are. See?
Did they play it at Ava Moon?
No.
They played it somewhere recently.
I mean, I think they played it maybe in the night after and whatever that. They did 3 more Florida shows to round out the tour.
Okay.
But I think you're right. I think they played Matrimony like the next show.
One of the shows they did recently, I know, and a lot of people were saying, "Oh my God, that's my Chase song." I've been to 80 shows and I've never heard. I'm like, I got it at my first show.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah. I mean, it was. I'll never forget that first show. I mean, it's only been 3, but there'll be a lot more.
What year was your first show again, Jen?
Oh,
mine was September 10th, 2010.
2010. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I always say I didn't know, like, just like you, I didn't know what I was going to see. I didn't know what it was when I saw it. I didn't know what I felt about it after. Like, it was very bizarre, but it was right before Emotionalism came out, or right when it was coming out. And the band on stage is not the band that like we know today. Like Seth was playing drums. It was Joe Kwan's, I found out, 5th show ever.
Yeah.
And then Scott's wife was singing like lead vocals, like there with a fiddle.
Yeah.
Like Tanya was not a part of the band at all yet. And
I knew she played.
It was still this wild production though.
Sang. I didn't realize his wife sang during.
Yeah.
I know she played her violin or whatever a few times.
Well, maybe she did. Again, my memory is not good. Like, I know she was there. I know she was on stage. I know she had a fiddle. I don't know how much she sang.
Well, I mean, you were there. I wasn't, but I didn't know
really
that.
Don't.
That's,
well,
look that up.
Like
Tim would know.
You walk away with that with a feeling, right? It was something. You knew it was something strange and special.
Strange and special is a good way to describe them, I think.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah. I loved it. I mean, it was just so different. And like I said, I think what just threw me off the most was it's just not something I ever thought about was like, oh, I love the banjo. Because I actually hate country music.
Yeah.
I have tried.
Like twangy country, right? Like
twangy. But like, okay, like Tyler Childers, I will say.
Tyler Childers is incredible.
He's his own genre, honestly. And he's got that gritty voice. And like I said, I love a gritty voice. So
I am 100% with you on that. I can't stand country music, but I love like authentic country artists with that raspy voice. It gets me every time. I love it.
Yeah. My husband, who still loves heavy metal, and I always joke about it that he's been to probably about 70 Avetts shows and doesn't even like them. Yeah, he's dedicated. But he loves Jelly Roll. He's just like, I love Jelly Roll. Really? Okay. But you like what you like, whatever grabs you. We don't sort of have to be pigeonholed to a certain anything. And I'm definitely one of those people. I love almost anything with the exception of country, with the exception of Tyler Childers.
So you would describe yourself as the anything but country kind of.
That's how I was my whole life.
Yes. Yeah. But I do like oh my gosh, because my brain doesn't work. What's her name? Sierra Farrell.
I was just gonna mention her.
That
like if 12-year-old me could see me loving Sierra Farrell like I do right now, he'd be like, "What is wrong with you?" But she's incredible.
It took me a minute because she is very reminiscent to me of like Dolly Parton, who I love. Dolly. Dolly is an amazing human. Musically, obviously, I know 9 to 5, and like I know the stuff from like the 80s because I was a kid and that was fun. But for the most part, like not who I rock out to at all. But once I really like dove in, and like her lyrics are really good, and just like her story, she just seems like this awesome person. And so I absolutely, I hate to say powered through, but I try to force myself to listen to something at least 3 times fully before I start making judgments on it. Because then you start kind of picking up on the nuances and being able to dive in lyrics, because I'm a lyrics person. I love some clever lyrics. I always will.
Her new album is amazing.
Yes, it's so good. But even like some of her older stuff, I'm like, okay, there you can see the gem in there for sure. So she deserves all the success that hopefully she's getting. But like her last show here, I think was like a 4,000 or 5,000 capacity venue, and it was sold out. Yeah. And on the secondary market, the ticket prices were not kind. So, but good for her.
She sold out here in Raleigh. She headlined the Bluegrass, like the International Bluegrass Festival here, just this September. It was, and I was like, wow.
Well, she's taken off. She's going to be huge, so huge. And she reminds you said Dolly Parton. She's like a mixture of Dolly Parton and Patsy Cline. To me, something like old school is so. I just love it.
And she did, if you guys aren't aware of this, she did a cover of Coat of Many Colors by Dolly Parton. It absolutely does it justice. Like it's so good.
I gotta look that up. I must have heard it at some point, but I gotta look that up.
I've heard her do a few covers. She's done a few covers that I've seen. I've seen her maybe 3 times live, and I feel like she does a cover for every show, at least one. And she does those, like you said, she does them justice, or she knocks them out of the park. But yet, her original art is like, it's not an imitation of any of those classics. It's really unique.
She's so good. I'm so happy. I've seen her twice. She's opened for the Avetts twice that I've been there. And the first time in 2022, no one knew who she was yet. And here she was on stage with just her guitar playing by herself. And we were all just like blown away by this girl. I'm like, I've never heard of this girl before. Blew me away. So cool that I got to see that. From the beginning, before she was Sierra Farrell, she was just Sierra Farrell opening for the Avett Brothers. But,
and we saw her in Mexico this year, 2024. And again, like Rob, admittedly, my husband is not a fan of the genre, but he is a fan of the fan base, if that makes sense, because everybody's so kind, and it's really just like this tight-knit group, and everybody kind of knows everybody. He loves that aspect of it. But he, we were there for Sierra in Mexico, and he was like, whoa, he was even like singing her praises basically. And so that's a high compliment from him.
She is a special talent, that's for sure.
Yeah. That makes me think of another question then from Avett at Avett Moon. Had the two of y'all seen gosh, now that I'm thinking of the question, I'm blanking. But Grace Potter, what did he think of her?
So we saw Grace Potter. So I want to say it was probably 15, 16 years ago. The Final Four was in Atlanta. Okay. And they actually put on free concerts in Centennial Park, free. And let me tell you the lineup. I'm sure there was an opener, but it was Grace Potter, Sting, and Dave Matthews. That's who we went to see.
Wow.
So Grace was very early in the day, and there were a billion people there. So I don't know that we paid amazing attention to her, which we should have. So I always knew she was great, but that was our first time like really seeing her and being up close and like feeling that energy. But he was he loved it basically.
I know. So one of the couples we were hanging out with, the husband had said, like, I had this completely different mental picture of who she was. I was like thinking of another artist or something. And then when they came out and started performing, the whole band was just like, I described them as like, it was like the band from Wayne's World or something that was just like in your,
Yes.
boom, in your face.
Yes.
And then the night before, we were sitting there talking before, night one, and he said, "You're going to need a cold shower after Grace."
I've got to dig into her music. I haven't listened.
She's great. No, she's just a great performer, and like
that's what I've heard.
The soul, and she's got a raspy voice when she needs to, or she can like change it up too. It's amazing.
I do feel like she's diving more into her rasp on the latest album, the Mother Road album, which is actually really great. The whole album is amazing. And like I said, I love a gritty voice. I always have, I always will. And so I enjoyed it. I just wanted to know about her shirt tape because I'm like, girl, what brand was that?
We were
that was the real MVP of the night.
Yes.
Like the Avett brother performance was pretty good, but that boob tape was next level.
Well, one of the funniest moments on that was the official photographer came up at one point to like take her photo, and she like caught it out of the corner of her eye, and she like went whoop and like made sure that it was
did a little check.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny. Anyhow, but you're not wrong.
Yeah, I heard lots of people talking about that. I only saw still pictures, so I didn't see any video to really appreciate it.
I'm embarrassed to say that she is actually my wallpaper on my phone right now.
Look at you. That's such a cool picture.
But I did get some great pictures because we were on the rail that night. So I mean, she just blew our minds.
It was I actually loved they did such a great job of all of the supporting acts and the opening acts for Avett Moon. So that's why I'm like, please do this again, because I feel like I trust their process and who they choose as their openers. I don't think I'm trying to think of a time that I've ever been like, man, I'm disappointed in this opener, because I don't think there is. And a lot of people I follow now, I follow because they were openers for Avetts.
Mm-hmm.
Like Gary Clark Jr., I wasn't lucky enough to see him open for them.
Wow.
But I remember somebody had posted a thread on like Avett Nation or something where it was like, hey, actually I might have posted the thread that I was like, hey, name an opener you saw for the Avetts. That was amazing. And I watched every video that people posted. And one of them was Gary Clark Jr. And I was like, wait, what is this magic that, and now I've seen Gary like 5-6 times, about to see him in a month or two when he comes back to Atlanta. So that's why I was like, I trust their artistry and who they sort of believe in, want to lift up, who they're pumping up.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. We're running out of time already. This always goes so fast. How many times now, you guys have each been to 100 shows. How many times have each of you been on the rail for a show?
I have no idea.
More than 50 times?
Oh yeah. I'm in a, like, we're all in a cult, right? But I'm in a special division of the cult where they really like to be on the rail. So usually the people I'm with, they love to live the line life and do that thing. So I'm usually along for the ride.
Yes, and I'm not a line person, which I appreciate the dedication, and plus also I have my husband to contend with, and he ain't about that line life. And so I've probably been on the rail, I don't know, 5 to 10 times. And then one time at 420 Fest in Atlanta, I think it was 2018, I was behind the stage.
Oh, wow.
So we ended up, we were in VIP, and I happened to know for that festival, they let you on a side stage. And so they had kind of booted us, and they were like, no, this is her family only. And I was like, all right. So we went around to the other side, and the security guard ended up knowing one of my homies and was like, wait, are you Jen Spiegel? And I was like, yeah, dog. And he was like, all right, come on back. And so Rob and I were the only two back there for about 45 minutes.
So it's like double VIP.
Nice. And then, so nobody else was there. And then some other people joined us. And this is one of my favorite stories, but the sound is obviously projected outward as it should. So the sound is terrible. It sounds cool to be side stage, and it was. I wouldn't do it a lot because the sound's awful. And so a group behind us came in, and they were talking. And so my husband turned around and shushed them and was like trying to hear the band. It was the owner of Sweetwater. You know, the person that's putting on the festival.
Nice.
So I was like, cool, we're about to get kicked out. But he was actually very gracious about it and apologized. And that was actually the night my husband got his second set list, because Mike just balled up his set list, turned to Rob and was like, psh, and
threw it backwards.
So that was cool, like real life. But I'm like, how about that side stage life?
Yeah, that's a different thing.
And I still have a picture of it. Someone took a picture from that festival, and if you zoom in, I'm wearing hot pink pants. You can like barely make out my pants and Rob's long blonde hair. So that was awesome. But I'm a giant woman. So if anybody hasn't met me, I'm 6 feet tall. So not a small lady at all. I like to sing and I like to dance, and I don't do either of them particularly well. So I tend to stay toward the back of the pit. I do love the pit, but I'll stay toward the back. So I'm not obstructing too many views and hurting too many ears.
Yeah, I don't have that problem, I guess. You remind me of my aunt, who lives in New York City. She is the same height as you. She acts just like you. She looks just like you. You guys would be friends.
She sounds cool.
Get you together soon. She's very cool. She's a crazy music person. She loved the Avett Brothers way back in the day. I didn't know who they were back then. But it's funny. I should introduce you to someday.
Was she who introduced you to them, or you just found them on your own?
No, I found them through a podcast. John Boy Media guys were doing a podcast one day with music. They're big Avett Brothers fans, or one of them is, and he played 10,000 Words and like did a breakdown of the song, and then played If It's the Beaches and broke down the song. And I'm like, well, I knew who they were, but I never listened to them.
Yeah.
Like from way back in the day, but I never listened to them. And he played those two songs, and I'm like, I got to start listening to see if anything else is good. And here we are.
If anything else is good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So side note, Rob, if he has to say he likes an Avett song, he loves 10,000 Words.
Oh,
so
good. Yeah.
Pretty much anything that doesn't have banjo in it, he's like, that's
nice.
And I'm like, whatever, you're dumb, because he is.
But here he is. How many shows has he been to?
He's probably been to 70. I haven't kept track of his.
Crazy.
So I'll have to go through my list, because I know the ones that he was with me at and the ones I went to with other people or by myself. So he's got to be
here for the most shows ever attended that they aren't a fan of the band. That's crazy.
But there's more of those people than you think. There's a lot of couples in the community that
a lot of plus ones
end up doing it.
Like I said, he loves the fan base so much. Everybody's just so kind and like,
right.
He's more memorable than I am, because he's just like, it looks like Thor.
Well, you two are I feel like this is, if we're talking about Avett couples, which we thought Todd and I were talking about doing a new show format with like Avett couples.
Yeah.
I think you two are contenders, because oftentimes when I see you at a show, you're dressed in a costume together, or you're dressed a certain way together. Like it's intentional what you're doing. Like y'all were in formal wear the night of your 100th, and you were fantastic. You were fabulous. And then I see him and I'm like, oh wow.
Yeah, he was
but usually like New Year's Eve, you're often in like pajamas or something, right?
Yeah, we do our buffalo plaid onesies. Yep. I think that's more me, where I'm just like, and he loves to dress up. Like, for people that don't know, we do Dragon Con every year, which is a multi-genre, like 80,000 people in Atlanta. And he dresses up as Thor. He has, I think, 5 or 6 different Thor costumes.
Oh, that's excellent.
And then he also does, like, he just did an event for charity. Like, he'll do charity events with children where he dresses up as Thor. He's gone to hospitals and stuff like that. So it's awesome. Very rewarding. So
I mean, he does look like Thor.
He does. And it's so funny too, because we've been together 28 years, and like the first 19 years, he didn't look like that. And so and now I can't think of a time where he didn't look like that. So
did he find a giant hammer somewhere and it was like boom, or what?
He actually grew his hair out originally because he was like, I'm going to donate it to like wigs for kids, because I think they take 6 inches of hair or whatever. And I was like, all right, that's cool. And we were actually at 420 Fest in Atlanta, and this guy stopped me and he was like, tell your boyfriend that I will follow him to Valhalla. And I was like, what? Because he's blonde, and I'm like, what? And then anyway, it started like sort of clicking, and he was like, you know what? I think I'm going to make a Thor costume. And I was like, okay. And so the first one he made, there was a meme forever ago, and we made a costume out of it, but it was cardboard frame, and it said Thorial, cause hem's worth it.
Nice.
And then he would pose in it like he was a picture frame. So that was his very first dabble into that. So
that's fun.
Yeah, wow. It's been good.
So he likes to dress up, as you said.
He does. So we're both in our 40s. He's almost 50. He'll be 50 next year. And I'm like, yeah, I guess we're just going to be buried in costume, and that's fine.
It's all good.
There's worse ways to live your life.
Absolutely. Live it happy, be happy.
Sure.
All right. So let's see, really running on. I want to be able to play your songs on the show here, but I want to hear about the posters. Like you're an admin of a poster page on Facebook. How many of these posters do you have? Do you have a poster for every show you've been to?
So I officially have a poster for every show I've been to. If it is a multi-night run and I don't particularly love the posters, then I will just buy one. Okay. So even though I've been to 100 shows, there have been a couple of shows that didn't have a poster. So like Detroit, was it 2021? For whatever reason, I don't even think we ever got an explanation. Not that it's owed to us, but it just would have been nice to know why. We never got there just was no print. And so,
weird.
Yeah.
They don't seem to do that ever.
Yeah, it was actually, I can't think of another time that's happened beside like a festival.
Right,
so for all intents and purposes, yes. And the funny part was my first show, at the end, I remember them handing out these posters by the stacks. So I probably got 10 or 12 of these. And they weren't the official ones that were for sale, but they were just like a promo one. And to this day, it's framed. I got it signed by them at a later date. It is my pride and joy. Like that if the house is on fire, I'm grabbing that. Like I'm getting my animals and I'm grabbing that, and everything else can burn.
Is it like the old school one where it was like a photo and they like filled in the venue like with a marker?
No, not quite the old school.
Yeah,
it's a print, but it's not on that nice like paper that you get from It's more like a slick paper. But I love that one. I love that even over the one that was sold, which I had to get later because I didn't even know. I think it was Savannah 2014 or 15. They did 2 nights in a row. And my friend's like, oh, I always buy the poster. And I'm like, wait, what? Is that a thing? And I remember buying them. So those were my first ones that I purchased.
It took you that long to figure out the posters?
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know. And even now when I go to another concert that's not Avetts, if I love the poster, I buy it. If I don't, then I don't. But
the cool thing about the posters is a lot of the artists are the same artists, so you're getting the same type of artwork.
Yeah, you get used to sort of seeing them in the mix.
Okay, I'm pulling
there's a lot of that's my first one.
I'm pulling up the database. This is your first show, and then here's the poster.
But awesome. If you scroll down, it may show up as the that's the one. That's the one they were handing out.
I see. Nice.
That's the one you have signed? Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I actually kind of like that one more. You got the Brandy Carlisle on there.
Yeah.
I like it. Although the top one is Ken Taylor. Who I love Ken Taylor, so his stuff is always great. So I'm super pleased with it. But like I said, the bottom poster is near and dear to me because I just remember being like, oh wow, they hand out posters for free at every show.
Yeah, what is that? Can you scroll back down to the other one there, Ryan?
Uh-huh.
That's what is that art?
It looks like wolves.
Like Romulus.
Romulus and Remus. Yeah,
there we go. Like,
wow.
There is a statue in Rome, New York, of that scene in front of one of the famous old buildings here, and it's like from the 1800s. Yeah. So that's what. Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
I'm just looking at your set list for your first show here. It's really impressive.
Good. Yeah, I know, and I didn't even know what I was getting. But
I mean, 10-man. You got 10-man. You got Jenny in the Summer Day. You got The Fall.
Yep.
You got And It Spread. You got Pretty Girl from Cedar Lane, which you talked about. You got When I Drink. That's been one of my favorites.
Oh wow,
that's a really good song.
And I got Four Thieves Gone. I didn't even know what I was getting there.
You're right. That's a nice encore.
I'm pretty sure I've got it one other time, but I bet if I looked at the database that it's only been 2 because they do not play that often. That's a nice little gem, and I know I was like I didn't even know.
Well, I know, yeah.
So do you have all your posters up in your house somewhere?
I
Or
do
are they
not.
in a portfolio?
We have a pretty big house, but if anybody's into framing, they realize how expensive it is.
Yeah.
And I ain't got that kind of money. So I have, the reason I know I have about 200 posters, 200 plus, is because I have 4 portfolios that hold 49 or 48 each.
Okay.
So I'm on my 4th one. I just bought my 5th one. And then I have probably 20, 25 framed. Doesn't mean they're hung because I'm also a procrastinator. But I got a couple, like I have my, that was an Alpharetta one behind me, a Ken Taylor rabbit. That was a show I was actually at.
Okay.
I had to buy the poster later because I didn't start actually like collecting and knowing that I needed all of them until 2017.
Man, that's a lot of posters.
Yeah.
A lot of posters.
So I got a few.
All right. So we've got 6 songs that you picked that I'm going to try to play. I'm going to get as many as I can here as we're going overtime again. We went real overtime last week.
I chat a lot
with Cody Gentry, but yeah, I was expecting it. So we'll get to what we can, and then tell me what songs you picked, why you picked them. I love this.
Yeah, I have to look at the list that I sent you. So for fun, I'm slightly ADHD on some things. So all these things that I've done by the Killers.
Okay.
I can't explain it. It's just one of my favorite songs in the history of ever. And I've been lucky enough to see Killers 4 or 5 times. And just Brendan Flowers is, it's just, he's such a showman. And I think the line, I've got soul, but I'm not a soldier. And that repetition is just a genius song.
Okay. What's next?
Second, Legend Has It by Run the Jewels. So half of Run the Jewels is from Atlanta, Killer Mike. I've not loved a lot of recent rap. I've been trying, but I'm more of like a 90s, 2000s kind of a rap person. Yeah. But Run the Jewels has been like my heart. I'm lucky enough. I've seen them, well, only twice. They opened for Rage Against the Machine. I saw in Madison Square Garden 2022, just before they canceled the rest of their tour. And I was blown away. So I really enjoyed them. There's a lot of great songs by them, but like I said, that's a little Atlanta shout out because Killer Mike's from Atlanta.
Nice.
I also threw in Wilder Woods, Maestro. Wilder Woods, so Bear Reinhardt is the lead singer also for Need to Breathe. He's got that soulful, kind of gritty, raspy voice that I love. Also happens to just be a beautiful man. Not that that's important, but it doesn't hurt. But I love, oh my God, I just feel like he just sings with every fiber of his being and you can like feel that. Also some really good lyrics. He's also seems to be at a place of midlife crisis-y, which I'm also at in my mid 40s. Like, you know, he's got his kids and his family, and then you feel like there's some maybe relationship struggles, which we all have. So I appreciate his rawness with that kind of stuff. But he's got a new album coming out. Wilder Woods has a new album coming out. I think I'm going to see him 3 or 4 times in the span of 2 weeks. He opened for Avetts, or I'm sorry, not for them, but at Moon Crush 2023, he was one of the openers. And that was my first time seeing him, and I was like, whoa. Okay. Then he opened for Avetts at Red Rocks last year, 2023.
Oh, that's why okay.
And nobody, you could tell by the crowd, nobody knew what they were watching. And I tried to warn people. I was like, y'all gotta listen to a few of these songs because it's gonna get lit. And it was. I enjoyed it. I flew out. I did a 24-hour trip, flew to Denver, went straight to Red Rocks, saw him, saw Avetts, slept, flew back to Atlanta.
Jeez.
And then, yes, I'm too old for that, but I still do it. Number 4 is Find Your People by Drew Holcomb and the Neighbors. Just like a very feel-good song. Drew Holcomb, obviously, as most of y'all probably know, has opened for Avetts multiple times. He runs the Moon River Festival in Chattanooga, which isn't happening this year, but just seems like a very sweet dude. Just is like a joy in the music world. But that is just like a sort of a shout-out song to you hanging out with your homies and your friends that just get it. So that's for my crew that I was with during Avett Moon for sure. And then Keep Going by the Revivalists. I love the Revivalists. I feel like they're one of those sort of under the radar bands that you're always like, I like this song, but you don't ever really like dive into their library. And I've seen them 4 times live, and they were at Moon Crush this year, 2024. Just a phenomenal, just a good song. Like they just like nothing extraordinary, but all really, really good is how I feel about them. And then number 6, since they wouldn't play it, is When You Learn by the Avett Brothers.
I will lead off the show with that just for
well
you.
Played.
I love it. I love it.
Fine.
Great song. I love some of them I don't know, so I'm excited to check out artists that I don't know. That's why I like asking the guests to pick music. I say this every time I do this, but I love discovering new music, and some of these I've never heard of, so I'm sure other people haven't either. And I'm excited to hear it because I trust your taste in music. So that's exciting.
I did throw any heavy metal in for you guys. I was like,
I was just going to ask that. Like, where's the metal? I was expecting it.
My husband really loves Falling in Reverse, which is like, to me, I call it radio metal. If you hear it played on the radio, it ain't real metal. You know what I'm saying? Kind of gatekeeping there.
It's like hearing. I was at Music Bingo earlier tonight, and Enter the Sandman came on, which you gotta like tap your foot to, but it's not like hardcore.
Right. Whereas like earlier Metallica, like your parents did not play earlier Metallica.
Right.
Everybody played the Black Album. Like, you know what I mean?
God, yeah. Definitely. All right. Well, we're out of time. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for hosting the show before, if I never actually said that to you. Way back whenever that was. That was a while ago now.
Yeah, a few months.
Yep. But I appreciated you guys doing that when I had no voice, so I just couldn't do it. But thank you for doing that, and thank you for coming on. That was a lot of fun. I had a blast. And
Thank you.
we'll see you down the road. Jen Spiegel, everyone.